Got a call about a disturbance back here. That you?
Disturbance? I'm sitting in my yard reading the paper, officer. That's all.
Gonna need to see some ID, sir.
I'm on my own property. Ain't breaking a thing. Don't have to show you anything.
Yeah, well, prove you're not the one causing the problem. You even disabled, like you say?
Look at me, son. Wheelchair, bad legs.
This cop made the worst mistake of his career when he decided to arrest a man sitting peacefully in his own backyard. What he didn't know was that the man in the wheelchair wasn't just anyone. He was a decorated Marine chief officer who knew his rights better than most lawyers, and every second of what happened next was caught on body cam. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video if you're watching this for the first time. Jerome Williams was 65 years old and hadn't worn his Marine uniform in 3 years. The accident that put him in the wheelchair also ended his 30-year career, but it didn't take away his mind, it didn't take away his voice, and it certainly didn't take away his understanding of the law. On this particular Tuesday morning, he sat in his backyard reading the newspaper. The sun was warm. His caretaker, Miss Patricia, had left 20 minutes earlier to grab groceries. Jerome didn't need much help most days, but she came by to cook, clean, and keep him company. He appreciated her. She was kind, reliable. He turned the page of the sports section when he heard the gate creak open. He looked up. A white police officer stood at the edge of his yard, tall, mid-30s. His nameplate read Voss, Officer Garrett Voss. His hand rested on his belt, fingers close to his weapon. His jaw was tight. His eyes scanned Jerome like he was already guilty of something. "Can I help you, officer?" Jerome asked. His voice was calm, steady. "I got a call about a suspicious person in this area," Garrett said. His tone was cold, accusatory. Jerome folded his newspaper and set it on his lap. "A suspicious person in my own backyard. I didn't say it was you. You walked onto my property without a warrant, without permission, and you're looking at me like I'm a criminal. So yes, officer, you did say it was me." Garrett's face tightened. "I'm gonna need to see some ID." "For what?" "For being in this neighborhood." Jerome didn't move. "I live here. This is my house. I've lived here for 12 years. You have no legal grounds to demand my identification. I'm not asking again, and I'm not required to comply unless you're detaining me. Are you detaining me, Officer Voss?" Garrett stepped closer. His shadow fell over Jerome's wheelchair. "You got a smart mouth for someone in your position." "My position?" Jerome raised an eyebrow. "You mean sitting in my own backyard, or do you mean being black? Don't make this about race. You made it about race the second you walked through my gate." Garrett's hand moved to his cuffs. "Stand up." Jerome didn't flinch. "I'm in a wheelchair." "Then put your hands behind your back." "On what charge?" "Resisting arrest." "You can't resist an arrest that has no legal basis. You haven't told me why I'm being detained. You haven't provided probable cause. You're violating my Fourth Amendment rights." Garrett leaned down. His face was inches from Jerome's. "I don't care what you think you know. You're coming with me." Jerome's voice dropped. It was quiet, controlled, dangerous. "Turn on your body cam, officer, because what you're about to do is going to cost you everything." Garrett smirked. "It's already on." Garrett grabbed Jerome's wrist and yanked it behind the wheelchair. Jerome didn't resist physically. He couldn't, but his voice never wavered. "You're assaulting a disabled veteran on his own property. That's on camera. You understand that, right?" Garrett snapped the first cuff on. "You should have just shown me your ID." "I don't have to show you anything. I'm not driving. I'm not committing a crime. I'm sitting in my yard. You have no reasonable suspicion, no probable cause. This is an illegal arrest." The second cuff clicked into place. Tight, too tight. Jerome winced but didn't cry out. "Those cuffs are cutting off circulation," Jerome said. "Loosen them." Garrett ignored him. He stepped back and pulled out his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I've got one in custody, requesting transport." Jerome turned his head as far as the cuffs allowed. "What's your badge number?" "You'll find out soon enough." "Badge number 2847. I can see it from here. Garrett Voss, 35 years old based on your photo file at the precinct. You've been on the force for 9 years.
You've had 4 complaints filed against you. 3 of them involved black civilians. None of them stuck because the department buried them." Garrett froze. His face went red. "How do you—" "I was a Marine chief officer for 30 years. I worked with law enforcement on joint operations. I know how to read people. I know how to read systems. And I know when someone's dirty." "You don't know anything about me." "I know you're about to throw your career away over your own hatred. I know that body cam is recording every word, every movement, every violation. And I know that when this goes to court, you won't have a leg to stand on." Garrett moved fast. He grabbed the handles of Jerome's wheelchair and shoved it forward, hard. The wheels jolted over the uneven grass. Jerome's shoulders slammed against the armrest. "Careful, officer," Jerome said through gritted teeth. "That's assault with injury. That's another charge." "Shut up." "You want me to shut up because you know I'm right. You came here looking for a problem. You saw a black man and decided he didn't belong. You didn't check the address. You didn't verify the call. You just acted on your bias, and now you're too deep to back out." Garrett stopped at the side gate. He yanked it open and wheeled Jerome toward the driveway where his patrol car sat. The body cam on his chest captured everything. The wheelchair, the cuffs, Jerome's calm, measured tone, Garrett's aggression. A neighbor across the street stepped onto her porch, Mrs. Lan. She was Vietnamese, in her 70s. She'd known Jerome since he moved in. "Jerome," she called out, "what's happening?" "Call my lawyer," Jerome said loudly. "Linda Cho. Her number's on my fridge. Tell her I've been unlawfully arrested." "Get in the car," Garrett snapped. "I can't get in the car. I'm in a wheelchair. You're going to have to lift me. And when you do, be very careful, because if you drop me, that's another lawsuit." Garrett's hands shook, not from effort, from anger. He opened the back door of the patrol car and grabbed Jerome under the arms. He lifted him roughly and shoved him into the seat. His legs dragged. His knee hit the doorframe. "That's on camera too," Jerome said. Garrett slammed the door. Mrs. Lan was already on her phone. She recorded everything from her porch. Garrett saw her and pointed. "Delete that." "No," she said firmly. "I'm a witness." Garrett got into the driver's seat. He didn't say a word. He started the engine and pulled out of the driveway. Jerome sat in the back, hands cuffed behind him, his legs twisted at an awkward angle. His wheelchair was left behind in the yard. "Where's my wheelchair?" Jerome asked. Silence. "You left my wheelchair in my yard. How am I supposed to move when we get to the station?" "Not my problem." Jerome leaned his head back against the seat. His voice was quiet now, almost sad. "You really don't see it, do you? You don't see what you've done." Garrett glanced in the rearview mirror. "What I've done is my job. No, what you've done is end your career, and you did it because you couldn't stand the idea that a black man could sit in his own backyard in peace." Garrett's knuckles went white on the steering wheel. Jerome closed his eyes. "I hope it was worth it."
Patricia pulled into the driveway 20 minutes later, 2 bags of groceries in her arms. She saw the wheelchair first, sitting empty in the middle of the yard, the newspaper scattered across the grass. Her heart dropped. "Jerome?" she called out. No answer. She set the bags down and ran inside. "Jerome!" The house was empty. She went back outside. That's when she saw Mrs. Lan standing at the fence. "They took him," Mrs. Lan said. Her voice was shaking. "A police officer. He arrested Jerome, right here, in his own yard." "What? Why?" "No reason. Jerome asked. The officer didn't give one. He just put him in cuffs and took him. I recorded some of it, and I called his lawyer like he asked." Patricia pulled out her phone. Her hands trembled as she dialed. "This is Patricia Collins. I'm Jerome Williams' caretaker. He's been arrested. I don't know where they took him. Can you find out?" On the other end, Linda Cho's voice was sharp and immediate. "I'm already on it. Mrs. Lan called me 5 minutes ago. I'm heading to the precinct now. Meet me there." Patricia hung up. She looked at Mrs. Lan. "Thank you." "He didn't do anything wrong," Mrs. Lan said. "That officer just wanted to hurt him." Patricia didn't respond. She grabbed her keys and left. At the precinct, Garrett dragged Jerome inside. 2 other officers looked up from their desks. One of them, Officer Ramirez, frowned. "Voss, what's going on?" Perp wouldn't comply, resisting arrest. Ramirez looked at Jerome.
at the wheelchairless man being held upright by Garrett's grip, at the cuffs, at the calm, unflinching expression on Jerome's face. "Where's his wheelchair?" Ramirez asked. "Left it." "You left a disabled man's wheelchair at the scene? He didn't need it to get arrested." Ramirez stood up. "Voss, uncuff him, now." "He's under arrest." "For what?" Garrett hesitated. "Suspicious activity, failure to identify." "In his own yard? Did you know it was his yard? Did you ask? Did you check the address?" Silence. Jerome finally spoke. "He didn't. He saw me and assumed I was trespassing. Because I'm black. That's the only reason." Ramirez looked at Garrett, then back at Jerome. "What's your name, sir?" "Jerome Williams, retired Marine Chief Officer, service number 2764839. I live at 428 Maple Street. I've lived there for 12 years. I was sitting in my backyard reading the newspaper when Officer Voss entered my property without a warrant, without permission, and without cause. He demanded identification. I refused because I'm not legally required to provide it. He then placed me under arrest for resisting an arrest that had no legal basis. He used excessive force. He injured my shoulder and my knee, and all of it is on his body cam." Ramirez's face went pale. "Chief officer?" "Retired due to injury." Ramirez turned to Garrett. "Please tell me you didn't just arrest a Marine chief officer in his own yard." Garrett said nothing. Another officer, Lieutenant Briggs, walked in from the back. He was older, gray hair, 25 years on the force. He took one look at the situation and his jaw tightened. "Somebody want to tell me what's happening?" Ramirez pointed at Jerome. "This is Jerome Williams, retired Marine Chief Officer. Voss arrested him in his own backyard. No cause, no warrant, left his wheelchair behind." Briggs closed his eyes. "Jesus Christ." He walked over to Jerome. "Sir, I'm Lieutenant Briggs. I'm going to get those cuffs off you right now, and I'm going to personally make sure you get home safely." "I appreciate that," Jerome said quietly, "but I'm not going anywhere until I speak with my lawyer, and until I file a formal complaint, and until I see that body cam footage." Briggs nodded. "Understood." He turned to Garrett. "Give me your body cam, now." Garrett unclipped it slowly. His hands shook. He handed it over. "Go wait in my office," Briggs said. His voice was ice. Garrett walked away. He didn't look back. Briggs unlocked Jerome's cuffs. Jerome's wrists were red, bruised. His shoulder throbbed, but his face stayed calm. "Thank you," Jerome said. "I'm sorry this happened to you," Briggs said. "This isn't how we operate." "Isn't it?" Jerome looked around the room. "How many complaints has Officer Voss had filed against him?" Briggs didn't answer. 4. 3 involving black civilians. None of them went anywhere. So yes, Lieutenant, this is exactly how you operate." The front door opened. Linda Cho walked in. She was in her 40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. She saw Jerome and her expression hardened. "Mr. Williams, are you hurt?" "I'll survive." She turned to Briggs. "I'm Linda Cho, Mr. Williams' attorney. I'm here to ensure his rights are protected and to secure all body cam footage from this incident." Briggs held up the camera. "Already pulled it. You'll have access within the hour." "Good, because this is going to court, and when it does, your department is going to wish Officer Voss had stayed home today."
The body cam footage hit the news within 48 hours. It didn't leak. Linda Cho released it herself, strategically, deliberately. She sent it to 3 local stations and 2 national outlets. By Thursday morning, it was everywhere. The video showed everything. Garrett walking onto Jerome's property, the demand for ID, Jerome's calm refusal, the illegal arrest, the rough handling, the wheelchair left behind, Jerome's voice explaining every violation as it happened in real time. People watched a decorated Marine chief officer being treated like a criminal in his own backyard. They watched him cite the law while handcuffed. They watched Garrett ignore every word and escalate anyway. The backlash was immediate. The police department's phone lines jammed. The mayor's office was flooded with calls. Protests formed outside the precinct. Signs read "Justice for Jerome" and "Accountability Now." Linda Cho held a press conference on Friday. Jerome sat beside her. He wore his old Marine dress uniform, medals across his chest, his wheelchair positioned front and center. My client is a 30-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps, Linda said. He served his country with honor. He earned the rank of chief officer. He led men and women in combat. He came home and lived quietly, peacefully, until Officer Garrett Voss decided that a black man sitting in his own yard was a threat. The cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Jerome raised his hand. The room went quiet. "I want to be clear about something," he said. His voice was steady, strong. "This isn't just about me. This is about every black person who's been stopped for no reason, questioned for no reason, arrested for no reason. I had the training to know my rights. I had the composure to stay calm. But what about the people who don't? What about the people who panic, who get scared, who don't know the law like I do? What happens to them?" He paused, let the weight of the question settle. Officer Voss didn't see a veteran. He didn't see a neighbor. He didn't see a human being. He saw my skin and made a decision. And that decision was captured on camera, every second of it. So now we have a choice. We can ignore it like we've ignored it before, or we can demand accountability, real accountability, not a suspension, not a transfer. Accountability that says this will not be tolerated, not in this city, not anywhere. The room erupted with more questions. Linda stepped forward and ended the conference. The city launched an internal investigation, but it didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. Garrett's personnel file was subpoenaed, 4 previous complaints, all involving black civilians. One was a traffic stop where he drew his weapon on an unarmed man reaching for his registration. Another was a stop and frisk outside a grocery store. The third was a domestic disturbance call where he arrested the victim instead of the aggressor. None of the complaints had led to discipline, warnings at most. The department had protected him, moved him, reassigned him, but never held him accountable. Now they couldn't hide it. The district attorney announced criminal charges: unlawful arrest, assault, deprivation of rights under color of law, false imprisonment. Each charge carried years. The city also faced a civil lawsuit. Jerome's legal team filed for damages, $500,000, medical costs, emotional distress, violation of constitutional rights. The city's lawyers tried to settle quietly. Linda refused. "This goes to trial," she said. "The public needs to see it." Meanwhile, the community rallied. Veterans groups showed up at Jerome's house. They brought food, supplies, a new wheelchair. Some of them stood guard on his lawn, not because he asked, but because they wanted to. Patricia stayed close. She made sure Jerome ate, made sure he rested, made sure he didn't carry the weight of it all alone. "You doing okay, Patricia?" she asked one evening. Jerome looked out the window, at the people on his lawn, at the signs, at the cameras still camped across the street. "I didn't want this," he said quietly. "I just wanted to read my newspaper." "I know, but you're doing something important. You're making people listen." "For how long? Until the next story? Until the next video? How many times do we have to prove we're human before it sticks?" Patricia didn't have an answer. Jerome turned his wheelchair toward her. "I'm tired, Patricia. I fought for this country for 30 years, and I came home to this, to being treated like I don't belong, in my own yard, in my own neighborhood. I'm just tired." She put her hand on his shoulder. "Then rest. Let the lawyers handle it. Let the system do its job for once." Jerome nodded, but he didn't believe it. Not yet. "Do you think the system will actually deliver justice this time? Or is this just another story that gets forgotten?" The trial began 6 months later. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, veterans, community members. Jerome sat at the plaintiff's table in his wheelchair, calm, composed, the same way he'd been in his backyard that day. Garrett Voss sat across the room with his attorney. He looked different now, thinner. His uniform was gone. He wore a cheap suit. His eyes stayed down. The prosecution presented the body cam footage first. The jury watched in silence, every word, every movement, every violation. When it ended, the room stayed quiet for a long moment. Then the prosecution called witnesses. Mrs. Land testified about what she saw from her porch. Patricia testified about finding the wheelchair abandoned in the yard. Lieutenant Briggs testified about the complaints in Garrett's file, about the department's failure to act. Jerome took the stand on day 3. The prosecutor asked him to describe what happened. Jerome did, calmly, precisely. No emotion, just facts. "Did you feel threatened?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes." "Why?" "Because Officer Voss had a gun, he had authority, and he had already decided I was guilty of something before he even spoke to me. I knew that if I made one wrong move, if I raised my voice, if I showed any anger, it could end with me dead. So I stayed calm. I cited the law. I made sure everything was on camera, because I knew that was my only protection." "Do you think Officer Voss would have treated you the same way if you were white?" Jerome looked directly at the jury. "No, I don't." The defense tried to argue that Garrett was responding to a legitimate call, that he was doing his job, that Jerome's refusal to show ID was suspicious. Linda Cho destroyed that argument in cross-examination. "What was the address of the call?" she asked Garrett on the stand. He hesitated. "I don't recall the exact address." "You don't recall, so you didn't verify the address before entering my client's property?" "No." "You didn't check to see if the homeowner matched the description of the suspect?" "No." "You didn't ask Mr. Williams if he lived there before demanding his ID?" "No." "So you made an assumption. You saw a black man in a backyard and assumed he didn't belong. Is that correct?" "I was responding to a call." "That's not what I asked. Did you assume my client didn't belong in that neighborhood?" Garrett's jaw tightened. "I don't know." "You don't know. But you arrested him anyway. You handcuffed a disabled man. You injured him. You left his wheelchair behind. You transported him without accommodations for his disability. And you did all of this without probable cause, without a warrant, without justification, because you saw a black man and decided he was a problem. Isn't that the truth?" Garrett didn't answer. "Your Honor, I'm done with this witness," Linda said. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. "We find the defendant, Garrett Voss, guilty on all counts." The courtroom erupted. Jerome closed his eyes. Patricia squeezed his hand. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge was a black woman in her 60s, Judge Lorraine Carter. She'd been on the bench for 20 years. She looked at Garrett. "Mr. Voss, you were given a badge and a gun. You were given authority to protect and serve. Instead, you used that authority to target, harass, and assault a man who had done nothing wrong, a decorated veteran, a man who served this country with honor. You violated his rights. You violated the public trust, and you did it because of the color of his skin." She paused. Let the words land. "This court sentences you to 20 years in federal prison, no parole for the first 10 years. You will also be permanently barred from serving in any law enforcement capacity. Bailiffs, take him into custody." Garrett stood. His face was blank, empty. The bailiff cuffed him and led him away. Judge Carter turned to Jerome. "Mr. Williams, I want to say on behalf of this court and this city, I'm sorry. What happened to you should never have happened. And while no amount of money can undo the harm, the city has agreed to pay you $50,000 in damages. I hope it brings you some measure of justice." Jerome nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor." Outside the courthouse, the crowd cheered. Veterans saluted. People held signs that read "Justice Served." Linda stood beside Jerome as reporters swarmed. "Mr. Williams, how do you feel about the verdict?" Jerome took a breath. "I feel relieved, but I don't feel victorious, because this shouldn't have required a trial. It shouldn't have required a video. It shouldn't have required 6 months of my life.
It should have never happened in the first place. Do you think this will create change? I don't know. I hope so. But hope isn't enough. We need accountability. We need training. We need systems that don't protect officers like Garrett Voss. We need a culture that values Black lives as much as it values everyone else's. And until that happens, there will be more Jeromes, more videos, more trials. And that's not justice. That's exhaustion. He looked directly at the camera. So to everyone watching, don't just celebrate this verdict. Demand more. Demand better. Demand a world where a man can sit in his backyard without fear. Because that's the bare minimum, and we deserve more than the bare minimum. The reporters kept shouting questions, but Jerome was done. Patricia wheeled him toward the car. As they drove away, Jerome looked out the window, at the city, at the people, at the life he'd fought for and nearly lost. "You okay?" Patricia asked. "I will be," he said quietly. "Eventually." Jerome returned to his backyard the next day. He sat in his wheelchair with a new newspaper. The sun was warm. The gate was locked. Mrs. Land waved from her porch. He opened the paper and started reading. For the first time in 6 months, he felt something close to peace. But he knew the fight wasn't over. It never really is. Justice for one man doesn't fix a broken system. It just proves the system can work when there's a camera, a lawyer, and enough people paying attention. The question is, what happens when no one's watching? So what do you think? Was 20 years enough? Should the department have faced more consequences? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. We share real stories about real people fighting for dignity and justice, because these stories matter, and so do you. Thanks for watching.